The Supreme Court, ladies and gentlemen, has said there is a worrying trend of criminalizing long-term consensual relationships after they turn sour. A bench of Justices B.V. Nagaratna and N. Koteswar Singh have said there is a worrying trend that consensual relationships going on for prolonged periods upon turning sour have been sought to be criminalized. And this has serious consequences, that of danger of attributing criminal intent to an otherwise disturbed or broken civil relationship. This was while hearing a case of FIR against a man accused of rape by a woman who was in relationship with him for 9 years. The man moved the High Court asking for the FIR to be quashed. The High Court said no. He then moved the Supreme Court. If a man is accused of having sexual relationship by making a false promise of marriage, and if he is to be held criminally liable, any such physical relationship must be traceable directly to the false promise which has been made and not qualified by any other circumstances or consideration. A very important part of what the court has said. This is hugely relevant because sex, even if consensual, based on a false promise to marry and certain other aspects, is an offense under Section 69 of the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. So legally, if a man persuades a woman to have sex with him by promising to marry her but has no intention of fulfilling that promise by law, that is rape. If convicted, he can be sent to jail for up to 10 years. A 2013 study, more than a decade ago in fact, stated rape trials in Delhi's district courts found that 1 in 4 came under the category of false promise to marry. Well, patriarchy and caste have been a focus lens to look at legislations and laws. But do the changing times also need a changing lens on how patriarchy, gender, and caste play out in a contemporary urban India? That's what we are going to be focusing on. Let me introduce my panelists at this point. I'm being joined by Barkhat Rayan, who's an activist, Sana Raees Khan, who's a lawyer with the Supreme Court, Dr. Ranjana Kumari, who's an activist as well as writer, and Rekha Agarwal, who's a Supreme Court advocate. Thank you very much. In fact, Ms. Rekha would be joining us in a bit. But thank you very much to all three of you for joining us. Sana Raees, let me just come to you first. You have handled cases such as this. So what do you make out of what the court has said today? What does it mean for you?
So this is not the first judgment quashing a rape case filed after consensual relationship turned sour. I have successfully secured the quashing of several false rape cases. So these kind of commendable judgments hinge on the principle that criminal law must intervene in cases of consensual relationship that later turn sour. Definitely should not intervene, and matters where consent is explicit, informed, or voluntary, again, criminal law should not intervene, because punishing consensual relationships as rape undermines the integrity of consent in criminal jurisprudence. These judgments reinforce the importance of ensuring that rape laws are not misused. While rape is a heinous crime, we cannot walk away from that fact, but then false allegations about consensual relationships can dilute the seriousness of genuine cases. And there's always a need for distinction between breach of promise and rape, because in many cases, a consensual sexual relationship becomes contentious when one party feels aggrieved due to breach of promise. But the courts have repeatedly emphasized that a failed promise does not equate to rape unless it is proven that the promise was made with fraudulent intent to induce consent. But then again, not all breaches of trust or failed relationships amount to a criminal act, because the balance should always be maintained. Women's right to safety and dignity, of course, are paramount, but it must be balanced with the rights of the accused for fair trial and ensuring due process, because the allegations must meet the evidentiary threshold, which is required under the law to prevent misuse while protecting victims of genuine assault. So this judgments, I believe, must serve as a reminder to law enforcement and lower courts now to carefully investigate allegations of rape. especially when parties have had prolonged consensual relationship. It prevents frivolous cases from proceedings and ensuring that genuine cases receive the attention they deserve. And also, hefty costs must be imposed on the victims also for filing false rape cases, for wasting the time of the court, judiciary, and setting a very bad precedent in the society.
Okay, okay, okay. Good evening, Ms. Rekha Agarwal. I'm told you've also joined us. We were just talking about what the judge has said. I've given a detail about what really the judge has said. We've also gone into how this is a welcome move. But here's the thing, and here's the question that I want to ask you. When you did hear about the judge talking about an increasingly worrying trend where there's criminalization of relationships turning sour, the intent is wrong in these trends which are, according to the judge, increasing. How do you look at it? Are there concerns? Despite the overarching reason for what the judge said, are there concerns that you see?
There's a problem. I can't hear.
Ms. Rekha? Okay, I think we have some issue with Advocate Rekha. Dr. Ranjana Kumari, do you have concerns? Do you have any concerns with the larger overarching message that the judge has given through this verdict, which many have welcomed and would say is a fair point, but is there a concern that you are looking at?
Well, in this particular case, the relationship was for 9 years. And also for 9 years, if a woman is waiting to get married and man is not keeping the promise, still they are going for sexual relationship. Certainly, there is a element of consent, because you cannot be living with someone for 9 long years without any understanding, knowledge, acceptance, and consent. So I think that's in that particular case is true. But what is worrying about this whole judgment is generalizing the whole issue and saying that many more such cases are coming up, and I think that's the whole view these days of the court. Just a few women, maybe 2% women who are coming up, who are educated, who can afford the court fee, who can go to the court and talk, and can contest these issues. That's not the general Indian society. A lot of women who are being exploited in the promise of marriage and being used, and also being in many ways controlled by men, because after all they have the power to decide and to control. Even if she pushes for a marriage, if he doesn't agree, doesn't want to, he will keep a wife in the village, a wife in the small city town, and a girlfriend in the urban area where he's working in a big city. So I think this has been a very, very known pattern in the country, and it should not be generalized. And that is why this whole law came, that if you are in promise, giving promise for marriage and having sexual relationship, and then declining to get married, or then or running away or going away or whatever. So in that case, that is why the law has been brought in. So it's not a general, that's the thing. Courts are these days taking view on certain cases. For example, in this case, I would think 9 years is long enough time for a woman to assess the man, and man to, and also to not to go for this kind of a sexual relationship. And there has to be consent. So that's a very different thing. But just generalizing and saying, oh, women are doing these days this, girls have become very smart, they are taking men for a ride. I mean, these are the court's view. This is very, very male oriented, very patriarchal, very, very, anti-women view, which has come to every level of court these days, and especially Supreme Court of India. So I would think that
those are very strong words. Those are very strong words, Dr. Anjana. Let me just get in Barkha Trayan. Let me just get in Barkha Trayan. Barkha Trayan, so here's the point. No, okay. Let me just ask you the question, Barkha Trayan. So, laws, legislations for a very long time have been seen and have to be seen through the lens of patriarchy and caste. Is there a need now to shift from patriarchy to gender prism? Is that what this is about? Even as there's arguments that there's generalizations from both the sides.
See, first of all, I have full faith and I believe in my judiciary. What Supreme Court has said is a welcome judgment. I thank the judges who have come to this conclusion, and this is not the first and not the last. Off and on, courts have pointed out that consensual sex is not rape. This is not the first time. Secondly, it is not a generalization at all. Too many cases. Every now and then, every day we are seeing these cases. That is why there is such a lot of rise in false rape cases, which is very worrisome. And the court has pointed out this. I commend it is commendable for the courts to come in again and again, and still if we don't understand, being a woman also, we don't understand that even men need justice. If what happens is when a false rape case is filed on a man, he is guilty from the first day and he has to prove his innocence. And meanwhile, he loses his job, loses his dignity, loses his golden years. What after 10 years, 5 years, even if he gets acquittal or the court says that he was not at the wrong end, he was not doing the rape, but then what happens to that man? We are not ever talking about creating balance. As the lady who was speaking in the panel for the first time, she also mentioned the same thing, that we have to create a balance in the society. High time. We have to talk about women's rights, but what about safeguarding men's rights?
Miss Barkha, points are fair. Miss Barkha, the points are fair, but here's the thing. Here's what I have to ask you. You are saying that there is generalization, there is a perception of a justice, and then there is justice that is not met with. When it comes to gender, when it comes to men, many would say that is true. They are already seen as not just an accused but convicted many cases. All right, I buy that argument. But to say there's a worrying trend, is that a stretch? Because look at the 2013 survey. In 2013, the survey was 1 in 4 cases that the courts were listening to in Delhi was about a false promise to marry. Now, contravene that to decades that have passed by and a very evolving, changing sociological system.
See, every often now, which I have been studying so many cases, there are so many cases which are going on in courts also, where the woman files a false rape case just to take revenge. So that is why what is worrisome, that this is becoming a trend for every woman. Like every now and then they find a better man or a better person or anything which they find a new boyfriend, they file a false rape case on the first one, or they even file a false rape case on their colleagues.
First of all, the language is wrong.
Okay, hold it. Okay, Dr. Ranjana, let me get you in. All right, Barkha, just a minute. Give me a minute. Dr. Ranjana, let me just ask you the question. I know you want to respond to what Barkha has also said. Ms. Barkha, just a minute. I came to you for a subsequent second question. I'll come to you. We have a lot of time to discuss. But with that one particular point that you made, Dr. Ranjana, let me just ask you this thing again. The same question that I asked Barkha. From patriarchy caste, do we now need to see rules, laws as patriarchy, from the lens of patriarchy or from the lens of gender? The two are different. Is that what the shift really needs to be? Dr. Ranjana.
It's not. Yeah, it's not from now. First of all, let me assure the previous speaker that rule of law is should be same for everyone. We all stand for justice for everyone in society. Anybody who has been wrong should get justice. So there is no messaging here saying that men should be penalized or women should be penalized. No, rule of law, justice. But when the laws are really, as you said, patriarchal mindset. Now, from Latika Sarkar, who was the eminent, law professor from Delhi University, she was appointed. It's an old story now, but anyway, she pointed out each law and said that how that law itself discriminates against women. So, if we have that kind of a mindset and people sitting and judging and people sitting in the courts, and we know many, many such judgments where women have not got justice. Even in this case, it may have gone for 9 years because she may have gone to the lower court, then to the session court, then to the high court, and then finally in the Supreme Court. So I feel that this is something which our system is And also caste, you brought in a very important issue, because when it is people who are for vulnerable section of society, Dalit, minorities, Muslim women, we make all kinds of stories about them, but how much they are getting exploited in our system, how much they are being denied justice. Now that's the fight. That's the thing that you have to say, that laws have to be really seen from the lens of gender, not
Okay.
just gender does not mean just women. So if somebody is understanding when I am or you are
No,
saying
no,
gender,
please don't bring
we are
the
not
religion
talking about
angle.
only women. Yeah,
Don't
and
bring the
religion.
religion angle here.
No, we are not bringing religion. What are you
No,
talking
no,
about?
don't
I don't
bring
think
the
you are
religion.
even
There
listening
is
to the
no
See, a
need to
social
conversation.
bring the
structure
religion
can't be
angle
just
here.
seen
The
as
law should
only
be
one.
saying
There are
man
multiple
cannot touch a
relationships
woman.
are also
Social
multiple.
structure.
And to be fair, I even brought in the caste. Hold it. Between the two of you, I would
Sneha,
really encourage both of you
Sneha,
to
there is
hear
no
it out.
religion.
Barkha, I'll come to you. I'm giving you 30 seconds to respond because there is a panelist whom I have to go to. So, Barkha, 30 seconds. Make your counter. We have ample time. I'll get back to you, but 30 seconds for now, Miss Barkha.
I wanted to make a point that let's not bring in religion here. Law
Who is
should not be
bringing
biased.
religion?
Law should be for
Nobody is
everybody,
bringing.
be
We are
it
talking
woman,
about
be it man, be it
society.
transgender.
We are
Law
talking
should be
about
equal. But
society.
here what we are saying, see, I got 30 seconds. Shreya, I got 30 seconds and she's not letting me speak. Now you decide who has to speak.
All right. Dr. Ranjana, fair point.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Barkha.
No,
Now
I'm
your
saying
30
we
seconds
never
has
brought
gone beyond, but I'm
religion.
allowing you
We
that. Please
never
go ahead.
brought religion. I don't talk about religion.
Yeah, see, I don't know why every time I start speaking, she pokes her nose into it. So let me
Okay.
complete, Ranjana.
Language,
Please,
I will
mind
get
your
back to
language.
both of you, Miss Barkha. I will get back to you. I get your point. You are essentially saying, sure.
Okay.
Go ahead. Make your point. All right, I think we both are pretty amicable and giving way to each other. So let me just go to Advocate Rekha, who's been waiting very patiently. Sorry, there seems to be some delay in how we both are talking and hearing each other. So let me just take advantage of that at this point and get an Advocate Rekha. Advocate Rekha, here's my question to you. A very important thing that the Supreme Court did say, and the Supreme Court said, it is said again and again, but very, reinforced this time that if at all there is a relationship that has gone sour and there is a false promise of marriage, it has to be restricted in focus to establishing that false promise of marriage and not look into other elements that would be there in the relationship. That's what the judge has said. How do you look at something like that? Because, I mean, just to quote the judge himself, it's a very complex relationship. Any relationship is extremely complex.
Sneha, honestly speaking, I heard the other three speakers also, Dr. Ranjana Kumari, Barkha, and Ms. Khan also, who's also an advocate. And I also read about the judgment. I heard about it from your channels. What I would say over here, being very, very fair and taking a pragmatic approach, I would certainly say that the judgment, I welcome the judgment. Honestly speaking, I welcome the judgment. And here there is no bias attached either to the views of any of the speakers. Speaking from myself, I would certainly say over here that
sure,
a balance has to be drawn. I am, when we're talking of equality, and as Barkha was talking about, and that the rights of women are there, the rights of men are also there. At the same time, when Dr. Ranjana Kumari mentioned about, how women they are more or less, let's accept it, that they are more surely going to be at the receiving end, and they do not get the justice that they should be getting. But we really cannot make any generalized comment even about the Honorable Supreme Court's judgment. There cannot be any generalized opinion also, because each case depends upon its own facts. Each case, each allegation made by an aggrieved lady and by an accused man will have to be seen in the four corners of the allegations made by the complainant in that particular FIR. Now, talking of Hindu Marriage Act, the essential requirements of any marriage under the Hindu Marriage Act, there has to be a consent there has to be free consent by both the partners, by the man as well as the woman. It is not in Hindu law, marriage is not a contract, unlike Mohammedan law. So when we talk about consent, and that has to be without any fear, without any coercion, without any duress, without any misapprehension about what either of the parties is getting into. So I think The very term consent means that मैं चाहती हूँ ये करना या मैं चाहता हूँ ये करना. I want to get into this relationship. So when both parties are adults, first of all, we'll have to see over here whether the girl, who is making the complaint, is she, number one, a major? Is she in a position to give her consent to having a physical relationship, whether it was voluntarily, whether it was under duress, whether it was under apprehension? And as far as promise to marry is concerned, a promise to marry is not a contract which you can breach, of contract which you can take to court. You cannot say, look, you promise to marry me. Because when you promise somebody, when a man promises to a woman, look, like, I assure you that I will marry you. It is not like an undertaking given on a stamp paper that this is for all times to come. Maybe at that particular time when a man agrees, or gives an assurance to a girl that, look, I do intend to marry you. I promise you I will marry you. But they could, and they both get into a physical relationship voluntarily. Though ultimately the girl may get into with that relationship having that assurance in mind that, look, this man that I'm sleeping with is ultimately going to marry me. So the social and moral issues, that burden which is attached to it, that baggage goes. But ultimately, at one point of time, the relationship may go sour for reasons which are justified. You can't hold a gun to the man's head and say, look, you promised to marry me, you better marry me, and if you don't marry me now, I may have been
you made a very interesting point. It's a very interesting point, and I think I would like to dwell on this for a little bit more. It's extremely interesting that you make, and you're saying just because there is a marriage to promise, a promise to marry, sorry, just because there's a promise to marry and it doesn't happen, that does not amount to rape for that matter. You're saying that. Let me just get in Ms. Ranjana at this point. Ms. Ranjana, it's interesting she says this, because if you go by the law and what the BNS says, how different or how much in line is it with what Advocate Rekha is saying? Even though those who are listening to Miss Advocate Rekha would say it's pretty sensible of what she's saying.
I think in this particular case, and Rekha is absolutely right, that this particular case, when you have lived with someone for 9 years and you have lived with the feeling or desire or, belief that the man will marry you, and you have been having sexual relation with the man. And then after 9 years, it's a long period of time. Without consent, it cannot happen. So I think it's really, in that sense, we all are agreeing that this particular case, and case by case, this can be seen that, in this case, certainly court has taken a view, or whatever the judgment has come is right. But at the same time, the general statement about, too many cases of this kind, or too many women are trying to, kind of make this as an excuse for rape. I think these are the things which we have to take out of these judgments. That's where the bias is seen. That's when you see how the court really looks at women these days, how extra comments are made about all this. I think this is something which is really bringing the whole effort that for past almost 4 or 5 decades women have made to get justice in the society. We are not. And secondly, also to keep the vulnerability of the woman. Where should she go? I mean, in this case, maybe she's earning, maybe she has income. I don't know the case. Actually, I have not gone through this case. But I can tell you that in many, many cases, women are totally dependent. They have absolutely no social support. They are coming from maybe very poor background, maybe from a very lower caste, maybe from another, community. So I think in those kind of cases, women just get to fend for themselves alone, and then everybody rejects them, including their own family. In many cases, disowns them. So where should the women? For men, there are multiple choices. You have to understand that given this kind of social system, and you brought in very nicely that caste and patriarchy, we are living in that social system where women women need to be supported, and that is why these laws have been brought in. So in this particular judgment, fine, court has gone through the whole merit of the case and made that judgment. But all those generalized statements court must not make those kind of statements. And I feel very strongly these days about, because in many cases.
So here's the thing, Dr. Ranjana, when you're saying that, there's another part of this argument, and that is when the court has said what it has, there's also this whole aspect of a law from the lens of a patriarchy taking away the agency from women in a very urban setup as it may. Now, that is something that we'll do, get to in a bit. But yes, please, Ms. Barkha, I'm sure you have a very strong counter and a different perspective to what Dr. Ranjana just said. So go ahead.
See, again, justice should not be based on gender. Again and again, I don't understand why Mrs. Ranjana Kumari is pointing on the Supreme Court. Supreme Court has given a very welcome judgment, and this judgment is a very good judgment for all. Justice should be for all. Here she is again and again pointing out that women are filing so many cases, and they are falsely raped, promise of marriage, this and that. But she is not making a point which is very valid, that more than 76% of the rape cases are false, and every day court is witnessing this, court is seeing this trend, and that is why they have written.
Ms. Barkha, can you
so
attribute this fact that you have said? Ms. Barkha, I'm coming in. I'm factually asking you a question. Ms. Barkha, that's a very, very huge statement. 76% of cases are false rape cases. Can you attribute this to what source is yours?
See, when I say 76% of the cases are false, because in so many cases we see the woman is hostile. She settles her scores.
No,
by
I get your
the
point,
money
Ms.
and
Barkha,
all.
but because we are
And
talking
then
nuances here,
sometimes in court only she's...
I would want to correct that and go ahead with our viewers and allow you to complete your statement. But if you have put in a fact, I would like to know the source, because this is not something that I'm aware of, and it is something that I would want to be educated about. But if it is not, I'm correcting that on air, and please go ahead with your perception.
Yes.
I'm not taking away your perspective, please, though. Please go ahead, Ms. Barkha.
Okay. This is the data which we have collected, where men have come up with their stories and told that they were charged with rape charges, and after that, when they are acquitted from the court, or there is some settlement, or the woman goes hostile, so after that we have drawn this conclusion. And moreover, see, not me, it is the court which is saying it is a worrisome trend going on, because every now and then we are seeing women settling scores. They are going with rape charges when a woman of adult woman sleeps with a man. She knows the consequences, and both know the consequences. Why only the man has to be blamed? Why not the woman? The pleasures has been taken by the woman and the man. I don't know why only the man has to be blamed. Only he has to prove him that he is innocent. Why? And what recourse does he have? He has to go through such a lot of mental
let me just go to the next panelist. Ms. Barkha, your point taken. I've given you ample time to speak as well. Advocate Sana, if you could come in. Ms. Sana, if you could come in at this point, and I have to take what Barkha has said, because at one point it makes a lot of sense. She's saying, why should only men be arrested? That's a question that many are asking. The court has also... Ms. Barkha, allow me the pleasure. As I said, there's no paucity of time. We'll have to give time to each other. Ms. Barkha, please, I do not want to lower down the volumes. I think I'm giving you ample time. All of us, I think we can have a very civil discourse here. But Ms. Sana, Advocate Sana, if I could get you in at this point. Advocate Sana, the Supreme Court made a very important statement in the past as well, and that is every breach of promise to marry is not rape. That, in context of what the judges have said yesterday, both are a very important part of the complete picture. Would you want to explain this to our viewers? You know, the law loosely, when read, says false promise to marry can get you in jail for up to 10 years for an average person. But then this court comes in and says every breach of promise to marry is not rape. Please explain.
Yes. So before that, I would just like to clarify, there is, national crime data report does show that there has been 55% increase in the false rape cases. So just to be accurate on that aspect. Other than that, yes, there is a difference. Just how I even, like initially also I explained there's a difference between for breach of trust and false promise of marriage. So of course, if it has to be proved whether the promise was based on a fraudulent intent. So here the intent comes into the question. But again, what I feel that, the accusation of rape itself can have several severe repercussions, and which includes social ostracization, loss of reputation. So, and legal process is generally, weaponized to harass or intimidate the accused, leveraging the stigma attached to rape. So, of course, public awareness is also very essential, because there are provisions like perjury provisions for false complaint, under 211 of IPC. again failed relationships or breach of promise. In such cases, I believe that society and even court can recognize that not all disputes belong in the realm of criminal law. Mediation can be an appropriate recourse in such cases, and as I already mentioned, imposing penalties and heavy costs for proven cases of false accusation can also act as a deterrence against misuse. So yes, that there is this differentiation has already been explained in several contradictory judgments. Also, like how you have stated, there are several contradictory judgments. There are, as you know, with differing opinions and differing views and dissenting opinions, there are different. There are differing judgments also. But this has been explained very categorically that if the intent, the fraudulent intent, has to be proved on record, that because of with a fraudulent intent. But in cases like these,
Advocate,
especially when there is a prolonged relationship,
right.
so that there itself the intention is again falsified. The
Okay.
allegation
Advocate
prima facie
Rekha
false.
Agarwal, if I can come in, everyone here, including the courts, of course, have spoken about the prolonged period of judgment. So, how long is long? I mean, if you look at the latest judgment, it's in context of a couple that were together in a consensual relationship, extramarital affair, for 9 years. Then there are others who have been together for, say, 4 to 5 years. Some for even a year and a half or 2 years is when one of the cases I was seeing. So how long is long and how short is okay? That's another question that automatically comes up.
I would like to say two things over here. First of all, coming to your immediate question that how long is long, it's a very subjective word, because long is always in comparison vis-a-vis something else. So in terms of duration of time, long as opposed to what is short, what common sense say, it has to be in opposition to short. So again, the long will depend upon the facts of that particular case. In a particular case, even a few months may be long enough. It doesn't have to be years. A woman may be in a relationship for a few months with a man in the solemn hope and assurance that this man is going to marry me and therefore I will have a physical relationship with him. So in those particular facts.
So then let me ask you this question, Ms. Advocate Rekha. I'm sorry, I'm interjecting you because it's important to put this in context for the viewer, and therefore I'm intervening to ask this question. So if you are saying long is long in context of a particular case, depending upon the different factors that are there. So when a court goes on to say 9 years is too long for a person to go on in consensual relationship, how do you, because there could be other factors. Is it, what I'm trying to understand, BNS or these cases, is it, how crucial is this long period factor to really say whether that was a false promise of marriage that eventually led to consensual sex or whatsoever?
The court is not oblivious to what is reality and what is the social reality, the country that we are living in. The court is not away. It's not like like a total ivory tower where it is not realizing what is happening in the world which is going by. So when the court used the word that 9 years is long enough, that is what a common sense would also say, that 9 years, you don't come to know 1 year has got 365 days. So multiply that by 9. So after what point of time would a common man having common jurisprudence, here we're not talking about some extreme yardstick to decide that 9 years is long or short. We are talking when the Supreme Court also says that 9 years is a long enough period. It only takes into the cognizance the fact that for a common man, 1 year itself is a long period. 1 year itself is a unit of time. 365 days is unit of time. So when we talk about 1 year in being complete in itself,
there's a paucity of time. So allow me to just very quickly get in Dr. Ranjana Kumari. The same question to you. Do you agree with how Advocate Rekha looks at this?
Sneha, first let me correct the two
Okay, but I'll come to you as well. But
the data offense. 1 minute, because facts should not be told to the nation wrong. So please read, allow me to read just 3 lines. According to NCRB, which is the latest report 2022, that is 2022, report, the combined false cases for 3 specific crimes of similar nature: rape, attempt to commit rape, and assault on women with intent to outrage her modesty, accounts for 7.23%. 7.23%, if they are listening to me. So let them not mislead the nation by saying that, all the women, and that is why the opinion is, it is a worrisome trend. It's a worrisome trend that somebody exploiting women for such a long time refuses to then get married with her. She may have children from him. She may have family from him. Who knows what was her situation? But the thing is that, just to say it is a worrisome. So I'm saying, but I'm not talking about the judgment. I said the judgment in that particular case may be correct. But to make these kind of statements
Okay,
which have
I am
larger
totally out of
impact on
time.
society.
Miss Barkha, come in. How do you respond to what she has said? I can't give you more than 40 seconds. Please go ahead.
I don't understand why are we thinking that only women are victims. Why, if a woman is facing
75%,
something,
very
she will come with a
75%.
complaint. And rape, when...
Okay, Dr. Ranjana,
Yes, I
allow
said
Miss
women.
Barkha
Let me
to
complete
speak.
now. Let me complete
Dr.
here.
Ranjana, allow Miss Barkha to speak, please.
Half a second, if I may just come in. Sneha, may I just come in for half a
See,
second?
both are adults. Both are adults.
No, allow Miss... I think I think now Barkha is going to accuse
They
me of not
sleep
giving her time.
together.
Barkha, go ahead. Barkha,
Both
go
are
ahead. Finish
adults and
Finish
they
your point.
enjoy. Yeah,
May I just say?
Ranjana ji, please keep quiet. Both women and
I'm
men,
not saying
when they are
anything.
adults, they are enjoying, they are enjoying their sex life. So let them enjoy. Why the consequences on a man? Why the rape charges comes on a man? When a woman is sleeping with a man, she knows that she is sleeping. She should know the consequences. Why when she's getting the gifts, when her desires are fulfilled, where everything is fine, she's getting everything, she's good. But the day the things are, she's not getting those gifts or the money or whatever she wants, then she files a false rape case, which is very worrisome. Because here, what is happening, it is becoming a trend every now and then. Any woman who is revengeful, who wants to settle scores, comes up with this idea because it's easiest. It is easier than delivering a pizza. You file a rape case, the man is behind the bars, and after that...
Okay, I'm not going to get into that. I think let's just... I don't have more time. I'm really sorry. My director is telling there's a complete paucity of time here. But panelists, thank you very much for joining us. I think this is a very important discourse. Each of you have brought some important sensibilities, and I mean, we've largely stuck to facts and their interpretations, but India is fast changing. Laws have been redefined, and obviously the construct of patriarchy, caste, religion, gender, all of it is at play while understanding laws and their existence. And that's what our attempt has been, to see how the Supreme Court and what the Supreme Court has said. So Barkat Rehan, Dr. Ranjana Kumari, thank you very much for your time. And to Sana, Raees Khan as well, thank you very much. And Advocate Rekha, thank you very much. It's time for a very short break.